6.3 billion people expected to live in urban areas by 2050, the United Nations convenes major event on sustainable future of cities, and the UN Economic and Social Council brings together many high-level participants to show how urbanization can promote sustainable development. Sustainable urbanization is the focus of the event, which is the first ever meeting of the Council's integration segment, a new annual segment on the economic, social, and environmental pillars of sustainable development. How can cities help to reduce the impact of climate change while coping with urbanization is our focus today on Earthfile. Welcome to the program. I am Ayala Kasim. This United Nations event is expected to help establish a common understanding of the role of urbanization in sustainable development and define the fundamental attributes of what makes a sustainable city. It will be critical to achieving the post-2015 development agenda and the sustainable development goals.
Today, we take a step toward harnessing the power of urbanization for sustainable development. This is essential to achieving three interlinked United Nations priorities for the year 2015. First, to reach the Millennium Development Goals. Second, to shape an ambitious long-term vision for development. And third, to adopt a meaningful new global climate agreement.
More than 50% of the world's population lives in urban areas today. By 2050, about 70% of the world's population is expected to live in urban areas, and more than 60% of the land projected to become urban by 2030 is yet to be developed. 95% of urban expansion will take place in developing countries. With the world urban population estimated to increase from 3.9 billion today to 6.3 billion in 2050, urbanization poses both a challenge and an opportunity to sustainable development. Urban areas are faced with problems of unsustainable geographical expansion patterns, ineffective urban planning, governance and financing systems, inefficient resource use, poverty, inequalities and slums, as well as inadequate delivery of basic services.
Urbanization can help reduce poverty sustainably in ways that handouts never can. Growth without planned urbanization, in contrast, is a recipe for soaring inequality. Thus, the choice is not whether to urbanize or not. The issue is whether we manage it in such a way that we obtain, together with our citizens, the maximum benefits.
As indicated in Goal 7 of the Millennium Development Goals, about 100 slum dwellers are expected to access good living conditions by 2020 through provision of basic infrastructure. According to the MDG document, slum improvements, though considerable, are failing to keep pace with growing ranks of the urban poor. Slum prevalence remains high in sub-Saharan Africa and increases in countries affected by conflict. 6 cities in Nigeria already have more than 1 million inhabitants. With more than 15 million inhabitants, the metropolis of Lagos is the most populous in the sub-Saharan Africa, even though it constitutes just 1% of Nigeria's land area. Unbalanced population distribution combined with high urbanization rates creates intense problems for the development agenda. Meanwhile, urgently needed investments in housing, infrastructure, services, and livelihoods remain absent. Lagos is the most populous state in the country. Here, it is said that a minimum of 2 out of 3 people live in some form of slum accommodation with little access to clean water, electricity, waste disposal, and other essential services, placing the region as having one of the largest concentrations of urban poverty on the planet. Within the state itself, the number of slum communities outnumbers those of the well-managed regions. Flooding is common, and day-to-day life is tough, but widely viewed as significantly better than the extreme poverty that exists in rural Nigeria and the violence, hence the wide-scale rural-urban migration that is occurring on a daily basis. Plans undertaken by the Nigerian government have clearly failed to confront the severity of what is already a crisis, especially regards to the disproportionate pace of the massive population rises to housing availability. Examples of initiatives include the Lagos Slum Upgrading Program at the end of the last century and the Lagos Metropolitan Development Governance Project. Back in July 2006, the World Bank identified 9 of Lagos' largest slums, which are Agege, Ajegunle, Amukoko, Adia, Bariga, and Dumakoko, for upgrading with a $200 million loan to improve drainage and solid waste management.
Our challenge or challenges largely infrastructure. If government can come in and develop Maroko, we are not saying they should come and build houses for us, but let's have street lights, let's have transformers, let's have good drains. People will come in and build because Maroko is central to all parts of Lagos. You get the island, you get the mainland, you get to Ajah and everywhere from here. And people around here are highly industrious. They sell fish, in large quantity to the community. People coming from outside Lagos to buy from here. We have a very good market, the actually market. And apart from that, there are other things people do here.
One of the problems with architecture in Nigeria is that we build from what we see in postcards, what we see in foreign magazines, and then we build houses that don't relate to our environment, houses that are not comfortable for us to live in and don't support our lifestyle. Now the floating school in Makoko really shows how buildings can adapt to their location. Now this building is floating on water. Lagos is a community that is still challenged by flooding when there's heavy rain. And if there's global warming, if global warming continues, climate change continues, we're going to have a situation where sea level will rise. Now, when sea level rises, a lot of buildings are going to be flooded. But the floating school will rise with the tide. The water goes up, it goes up, the water comes down, it comes down. So we have a building that works, in line with the dictates of nature. And this is the way we need to build our houses. If you go to our villages, find that many of our buildings have internal courtyards. So people go, they stay outside within the enclosed compound, they carry out their living activities, and then they are comfortable. They don't need air conditioners. Even the buildings, when you build a house with a thatched roof, breeze and air comes in even through the roof. So when the doors and windows are closed, you still have air moving through the building. Now we are here in the floating school. We don't need fans here because the breeze is blowing through the house. So we don't need to consume a lot of energy. We need to build in a way that's environment friendly, in a way that uses less energy, a way that causes less pollution, a way that supports planet Earth and supports our life.
All slums in Lagos now attract the attention of the state government with a view to realizing the state's vision to be Africa's model mega city. The state government says it has adopted a number of strategies and consequently started engaging stakeholders in critical sectors in order to achieve slum improvement and upgrade. One of the major challenges identified with these projects is the inability of the government to have a maintenance program in place. Already, some of the commissioned projects are not usable or completely abandoned. This has further frustrated the beneficiaries of the project.
That we are using the water is good. For about 9 months to 1 year, it has been that you need to repair or do everything to it. Then we go to the local governments at Pt1. When we read there, they said that they are not the president that will do it for us. It's where that we are using it in our area. We do the maintenance and every damn things. So they come here to make meeting with us, with the people in our land by that time. So, and even though the woman that had Yaba local governments too, she came to us by that time. When they do it later, I volunteer myself to spend about 35,000 repairing about the sum of it. Later now, this thing again, they then have the complaint. The people that is using this water, they are level themselves 500, 200, 100 in order to maintain it.
Addressing sustainable urbanization will entail the consideration of its economic, social, and environmental implications and connections, and it will require collective action by a wide range of stakeholders, including governments, the United Nations system, private enterprises, civil society, and communities. How can cities be at the forefront of new initiatives that will help people prepare for these impacts and strengthen their resilience?
Most times our policies are well written, but the implementation are always the issue. For instance, part of the risk identified by the IPCC is that the cities in the coastal area will have a serious issue. Typically looking at Lagos, they will have to start looking at about urban planning, about our urban renewal system. How do we use our coastal hedges? Places like the Lekki Peninsula, the Victoria Highland, how do we manage this axis? What will be the effect if there's sudden increase in? So these are the issues we must focus on. So if you're looking at the issue of flood in the coastal areas, we must be looking at urban issues with regards to our cities in the urban, in the coastal areas. If you are looking about the effect of climate change on agriculture, then we must be looking at our hinterland and coming up with agricultural policies that will encourage us to find means of mitigating against climate change, such that the rural-urban migration will be stemmed down. Because what it means is that when the local people are at risk, they move to Lagos looking for manufacturing jobs, putting more pressure. So you have to balance all the sectors